Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we're learning the Hadran on the Rambam from Tafshin Memvov. Tonight is the Siyum Rambam, Tafshin Pevov. I think it's the Siyum of Machz Hamem Hey. Am I right?
Yeah.
Or more?
Yeah. I think so. 45.
45 times learning the entire Rambam Sefer Mishnah Torah. Mazel Tov for all the Lemdei Rambam and those that are learning Perek Echad L'Yayim. The Siyum is tonight as well. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. So we're going to learn the Siyum that the Rebbe made, the Hadran, the Rebbe said on the Rambam from 40 years ago. It's not so far off from the date when the Rambam was completed then, Parshas Vayakol, about another month from now. Okay, so we begin. Sif Aleph. B'Siyum Sefer Mishnah Torah Mevayer HaRambam Ba'arichas Gedola Es Matzav Ha'olam B'Yimos HaMashiach. The Rambam, in the conclusion of his Sefer Mishnah Torah, explains at great length what will be the condition of the world in the days of Mashiach. Umakdash L'zeh Perek Shalom. And the Rambam dedicates a full chapter discussing just this subject. Okay, so now at 1, it's clarified what this means. B'negei Matzav Ha'olam She'yeh B'Yimos HaMashiach. The 12th chapter in Hilchos Malachim is dedicated to explaining this point. What will be the condition of the world in the days of Mashiach? It's a perek that speaks about Mashiach himself, qualifications for Mashiach, and what are the signs of his arrival, Mashiach Cheskas Mashiach, Vadei Mashiach, and so on, and the proofs and the psukim for Mashiach.
Why do you have to make this footnote?
What, why?
Why do we need this footnote?
For those that may have thought that there are 2 chapters that are dedicated to Mashiach. So the footnote clarifies that the 11th chapter doesn't speak about Yimos HaMashiach, it speaks about Melech HaMashiach, as the 11th chapter begins. HaMelech HaMashiach, Osid Lamed. Okay, for people on your level, it's simple. Tzarech lahavin. The question here is, Harei kol ha'inyanim shebesefer Mishnah Torah he malachas. Everything, every single word in the Rambam is written as a halacha. Rambam, the Rambam says that he's writing a sefer and he's dividing it into halachas. So the Rambam is paskening things that are relevant in practice. So they move on. How is it possible to say regarding this? Tiur hamatzav sheyeh b'yimos HaMashiach, describing the condition of the world when Mashiach comes. Shezeu halacha. This is relevant la halacha. What is the actual thing that's relevant for us today in practice from this explanation regarding the condition of the world when Mashiach comes? It's more for a Gemara, an Agadata, a Medrash that describes Yimos HaMashiach and Perek Chelik and the Gemara and Sanhedrin. But in the Rambam, this is extra. So the simple answer for this is as follows. Sha'achiyov laham and b'biyas HaMashiach. When the Rambam writes in Perek Yud Aleph that there's an obligation to believe in Mashiach and to wait for his coming, this includes not only to wait for Mashiach's coming without having any idea what Mashiach consists of, just in the general sense, Mashiach is going to come. What is included in that? What does it mean? So therefore the Rambam says it includes to know and understand all the great things that Mashiach will have and represents. So when the Rambam describes what the world will be like when Mashiach comes, it's not just telling you a story about the future. This is a halacha. The Rambam is paskening Ma'aseh b'poel that a person has to know this. We're not only awaiting the coming of Mashiach in the general sense, all the details that the Rambam includes and describes about the coming of Mashiach are the details that are relevant to know, that you have to believe in and await this. Which means, interestingly, that those details that the Rambam omits, which are mentioned in Chazal, that are mentioned in Midrashim, and the Rambam doesn't bring, so that means that those details, doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So why didn't the Rambam bring them? Some Midrashim the Rambam chooses to bring, and some Midrashim he doesn't. Because he only brings those details that are negei halacha, that we have to be aware of them, and it should inform and enhance our obligation of belief and waiting for the coming of Mashiach today. But this itself requires to be explained. Why would one not fulfill his obligation in believing in Mashiach, one of the 13 principles of faith, to believe in the coming of Mashiach? Why is that not fulfilled in one that believes that Mashiach will come and redeem the world and build a Beis HaMikdash? Why is it necessary to know any additional details? And it's necessary as part of the emunah to believe and to wait for all the details that the Rambam brings.
Which details?
What are the details of Perikid Beis? The Rambam starts off, all the different things that the Rambam speaks about. And everything in between. That's the first words and the last words of the Perik. And then, but everything that Rambam speaks about regarding Yemei Mashiach is all details important for the Amunah. What's the reason? It means, by the way, that many Yidden may not be fulfilling the obligation of believing in Mashiach properly because they never learned Rambam Perikid Beis. They're not aware of all these details. They believe. Every Yid is a Maiman ben Maiman. He believes in the coming of Mashiach, but not the details. It's like the mitzvah of Amunah. That there's a mitzvah of Amunah in the Eibishter, but then there's all kinds of details about believing in the Eibishter, believing that it's one Hashem, Achdus Hashem, and all different things that the Rambam speaks about in the details of Amunah B'Hashem. So, what? The protim of Mashiach is not in the Yud Gimel Ikrim. It's just Ani Mamin, Aval Bishi Ismameya, Achake, so that's Maimin, there's Mechake, but the details, that's something you have to learn and know. If you don't learn, you don't know, so then your belief in Mashiach is immature. Like a child that believes in Mashiach. The child has the idea and the vision in his mind. Mashiach would mean candies on the tree and other very beautiful things. Rambam brings also Madana Mitzuyin Kafar. So that's a detail that's part of it. That's only one detail though. There's a lot more that the Rambam speaks about. So in order to believe Mashiach properly, you have to learn Rambam, Perikid Beis, of Hilchos Malachim. It's Negei la Halacha. Okay. Hine, I get it, the Bias Mashiach. What exactly is the proper definition of the coming of Mashiach? Before we get into the details of what's going to be when Mashiach comes, but what is the meaning of Mashiach coming? What is that? What is the content of what does Mashiach represent? What is going to change? Shekiyom ha-mitzvahs yi'oz b'tachlis hashleimus. Fulfilling of mitzvahs will be in its utmost, in the ultimate level of fulfillment. That is what Mashiach is all about. That's where it begins, and that's where it ends. Everything else is not what the essence of what Mashiach is about. Just this. Kiyam ha-mitzvahs b'tachlis hashleimus. Ukaloshna Rambam bePerik shelifnei, as the Rambam says this in the Perik before, in the beginning of Perik Yud Aleph, that Melech HaMashiach Osad Lamed, and what is he going to do? V'chayzerin kol ha-mishpatim b'yamav kishahoyim b'kaidim. All mitzvahs will return in his days as they were previously, which means Makrivin Karbanis will have the opportunity and the possibility to bring Karbanis, v'aysin shmitim v'yayvleis, and we'll count Shmita and Yovel, and they will be fulfilled Menatayre, K'chol mitzvasa ha'amura b'tayre chula, and all the mitzvahs that it says in the Torah. That is Mashiach. When the Rambam in Perek Yud Aleph writes in one halacha, what is Mashiach? He says this: Chayzerin kol ha-mishpatim, that all mitzvahs come back the way they were in the beginning. Zau. Neisef al masha afilu b'negeya ha-mitzvah shenehuga is gam b'zman hazeh. This is in addition to the fact that even those mitzvahs that we could fulfill today, only when Mashiach comes, we will have the opportunity to fulfill those mitzvahs with the full focus, which it says in the Rambam and Hilchos Shuvah that today, because we have so many distractions because of life and all kinds of obligations and tirdis and preoccupations, that it doesn't allow us to be fully focused and learning, davening, doing a mitzvah. Mashiach comes, none of those distractions will exist, and we will be completely and fully dedicated to the fulfillment of the mitzvah. This is in the Lashon of the Rambam. In the Lashon of Chassidus, it brings, the Alter Rebbe Teirah explains that Lashon that we say in davening, that the full, ultimate, and real fulfillment of the Ratzon of Hashem will only be Lasad Lavi when the condition of the world will change. Beruchnius, it'll be a different kind of world. Yeah, that's Mashiach. We'll move on with Pashtus. So now it's simply understood. Next page. Shashleimus Shatia b'Meisa Mashiach, that this ultimate level of completion or perfection that will be in the days of Mashiach, this brings us to a much higher level than was already achieved at the time when the Beis Hamikdash was standing. Including certain time periods when the Beis Hamikdash was standing. There was no other kingdom that was causing any oppression over Yidden. Again, that it did not allow Yidden to fulfill Torah mitzvahs fully and properly. In the generation of Shlomo HaMelech, that was the ultimate time of peace when Yidden had the Beis Hamikdash and there was no wars whatsoever. But even what Shlomo HaMelech accomplished doesn't come to what's going to be when Mashiach comes. Because Mekiven shedafke b'maisa Mashiach yeh v'asiroisi esleiv ha'even mipsarchem. Only then does the pasuk say, I will remove from you the feeling of your heart being like stone, that it's not sensitive to connect to Hashem and to feel Hashem. That will only change when Mashiach comes. So it's not only about the world on the outside to get rid of any level of evil that exists in the world outside, but in the Pnimius, in the Leiv Ha'even, to remove and change that, that's going to be only when Mashiach comes. So the fact that when Mashiach comes, mitzvahs will be fulfilled in their ultimate level. Where do we see this highlighted? In the very first mitzvah. It's not only first in number, but it's also first in its importance. This is the foundation, the pillar and the foundation of all mitzvahs. Mitzvahs yidiyas Hashem, the mitzvah to know Hashem. So that mitzvah is going to be fulfilled when Mashiach comes on a whole new level. Then we'll have an abundance of knowledge and wisdom, as the entire world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem. As long as that level of knowledge is not in its abundance, it's impossible to have the full and ultimate knowledge of Hashem. In other mitzvahs, technically, you could fulfill mitzvahs tefillin today perfectly. Elamai, there's distractions that doesn't allow us to focus on the full content and the experience of what tefillin is really about. But in essence, mitzvah, the condition of the world, is nothing really that is not possible for a person to put on tefillin fully. But Yidiyas Hashem, the very mitzvah itself is the knowledge, and that knowledge has not yet been revealed. It's not b'chlal available for us. So based on this, we would be able to explain this would be an explanation why it is that in the obligation to believe in Mashiach, it includes also to know what the condition of the world will be when Mashiach comes. Kitir Zeb, because once you know that description of what will be, who bir v'tam al hashlem is the kiyam atayram mitzvahs sheyaz, because this is the explanation for the ultimate fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs that will be possible then. Kail al hashlem is the mitzvah sidiyas Hashem, including, as just explained, the ultimate fulfillment of the knowledge of Hashem. V'yasigu das bayram, as the Rambam describes it. She'inyin zeh hu ageda the bias Mashiach. This is what Mashiach is all about. So without understanding the details that the Rambam brings in Perikut Beis, basically the Rebbe is saying all these details are one idea. They're all explanations showing you the details that is going to allow the das of Hashem to be b'shleimus. And that is what Mashiach is all about. So do you want to know if you really believe in Mashiach? Do you understand what it means to have a full, proper knowledge of Hashem? If you imagine the knowledge of Hashem to be something that's available for us today, so then you're not believing in Mashiach. It's like, to say what the Rebbe is saying here in the language of Chassidus, we have the ability today to have an avon v'asage, a comprehension of the Eibishter's existence on the level of Malak Alalman, the level of the Eibishter after a tzimtzum related to the existence of the world. Mashiach is the Eibishter that's going to be revealed beyond that. If a person has no concept of the Eibishter's existence beyond what we can observe and connect to based on the existence of our world, so then you can't be believing in Mashiach, really. Because you're believing in the inyan of Mashiach, which is the shleimus of Torah mitzvahs, and in a person's mind, what's the shleimus of Torah mitzvahs? It's something related to our world, but that's not what it is. Torah mitzvahs in its ultimate form is a person that's elevated above the mitzvahs of the world, doing mitzvahs out of any distractions of this world, in the sense that he's not doing it in the limitations of the world. The knowledge of Hashem is the true knowledge of Hashem, not based on our reality, b'chlal. So if you want to know if you really believe in Mashiach, so you have to know Rambam Perikut Beis, or really by extension, from what the Rebbe is saying here, if you don't learn any Chassidus and you don't have any idea what Yasigu Das Baira means, so then it's very tough to actually fulfill the mitzvah of wanting, praying, hoping, and the machake for Mashiach. Because the person that's stuck in his own little box and he's thinking of things just out of that perspective, to wait for what? I don't even know that exists. This reality of Mashiach is something that doesn't exist in his world, b'chlal. He's not even aware of it, b'chlal. What is it to wait for? So you have to learn Perikut Beis, and you have to learn the real proper taich of Perikut Beis. Then you can believe in Mashiach. That's the simple pshat here. But the Rebbe is still not satisfied.
That brings more das in the lakus when you learn Perikut Beis.
You not have an appreciation what the inyan of Mashiach is, what the das of a lakus consists of. It's a different level of das and alakus. It's not the regular kind of das and alakus. It's a das and alakus, which is a new kind of revelation. Tarba hadeya b'chochma. The Rambam doesn't describe what that day consists of, but he just tells you that it's going to be a different level of das. Tarba hadeya b'chochma. Molo is deya savaya. So you start to realize that the level of deya that's available for us today, that's not knowing the Eibishter. In contrast to Lovay, Tarba deya. Our day today is minuscule, tiny, nothing. Kala chashiv. And then you could appreciate believing in Mashiach. While this explanation is true, but it's insufficient. Because not based on this, I gather the beers of Mashiach, what defines the coming of Mashiach, Shalimud Atayre, Vikiyam HaMitzvahs to Yisrael, Yiyaz Betachlis HaShleimus. That then learning Torah, fulfilling mitzvahs will be on its ultimate level. As Rambam describes this in right here in Hilchos Malachim and Perikut Beis, Leinisavu Chachamim, V'Levan Neviim, L'Yimayis HaMashiach Chulu Elo Kedei Sheyeh Pnuim B'Torah V'Chachmasa. The only reason the Chachamim, the Neviim, desired Mashiach, or Elo, that Rebbe emphasizes, in order to have time to learn Torah and its wisdom. Hainu Sha'Ilu the Yimayis HaMashiach Shelizet Tzrichim L'Chakas L'Tzapais. The greatness about that time period, and that's what we are waiting for. It's just this point to have the opportunity to do mitzvahs in the highest level. But the condition of the actual world that will change, the fact that there's no hunger, no war, study. That's actually a side point. That enables Yidden to fulfill Torah mitzvahs on its ultimate level. But it's not really what it's about. That's only an enabler. If so, the question remains, Madua, so why is it that Atir the Matzava Ilam Shia Ashuluchayrakin study describing the existence of the world that will be them, which is just a side point, who prat v'geder b'chiyava muna b'biyas HaMashiach. This is a detail, and not just a detail. This is the geder. This defines the obligation of believing in Mashiach. So the Rebbe says after this entire explanation, it by knowing what the world will be like when Mashiach comes, that allows us to have a day in the Eibishter without any obstacles and so on. But this itself, the description that the Rambam speaks about, the condition of the world, that itself is Nikeya? Chayda not. So why is the Rambam bringing this in the Sefer Halachos? Okay. See a little bit more. So some more questions that Rebbe asks over here. Next week we'll learn the answer. But let's see the regarding the level that Yidden, right? The Rambam describes the level of the world that will change when Mashiach comes, but the Rambam also describes the Ilud Yisrael, the level of Yidden that will be then. So Kasav Rambam Besim v'chaysim sifrei v'zel shaynai. So in the very last halacha, the Rambam says, "You Yisrael chachamim gedolim." Yidden will be the great scholars. And he will know hidden matters. And they will comprehend the level of Hashem's understanding as much as humanly possible. Now, if you pay close attention to the words of the Rambam, So he says two things. Yoidim dvarim astumim, to know the hidden matters. And v'yasigu das bayram, and to also grasp the daya, the understanding of Hashem. So there's a diak here. Yoidim b'loshen hoive. When he says yoidim, the knowledge, he uses a present expression. Yoidim, they know. And the yasigo b'loshen asid. Then when he speaks about grasping, he uses a future tense. Mash medubekano bezin yonim. So it seems like the Rambam here is saying two different things. So Aleph, the first point is yoidim dvarim astumim hu prat po'ilu di Yisrael gufa. When it says the Yidden will know the hidden matters, this is a certain detail in describing the level of Yidden themselves. This after the Rambam says Yidden will be great scholars, and he's describing the great level of the Yidden themselves, that they will know hidden matters. But is the next point when it says, what does that mean? They will grasp the day of the Eibishter. It's not a description of the level of Yidden. Rather, it's a description of the fulfillment of the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem. That Yidden will fulfill that mitzvah on the utmost, greatest, ultimate level as much as humanly possible. As much as possible. Those are the 2 points. So one is speaking about the level of Yidden's existence. What level within them will be revealed, that Yidden will have the power to know Hashem. And another is speaking about the fulfillment of the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem. Now, the question here is, Aleph number 1, there are two details that Rambam says regarding Yidden themselves. One, Chachamim Gedolim, great scholars. And two, Yoidim Dvarim Hastumim, and you'll know hidden matters. What are these two things? Beis Kefi Koyach Adam. The Rambam adds as much as humanly possible. Why is it necessary to clarify that? Pshita she'adam yachal lahasik rak kefi koyach v'lo yoser or b'frat k'shem meduber this das bayram. If it's not humanly possible, of course, it's not humanly possible. What's the need to add that? And especially we're talking about the knowledge of Hashem, so it's obvious that there's certain limitations to this.
Which one is the key Adam? By Sigu?
Yeah. Yes, that's where it says it. Gimel, another question here is, Madua maitek Rambam gam siyam posik. This is a question that I've asked a number of times. When the Rambam brings the posik Himala, it's there, he brings the conclusion of the posik where it says, Kamayim layam mechasim, like the water that covers the ocean. And the water of the ocean that covers the seabed. Befrat, why is it necessary to quote this? Befrat shebelchus shuve, shegam shom metayr Rambam eich shebaise ayomim tarbe adei v'chachma cholu, a very similar expression. Maybe Yosei Pasik, Kimal Haaretz Geimet, Lo Yevi, Siyam HaKost of Kamayim Lo Yamachas, doesn't bring the conclusion of the Pasik because it's not relevant here. Dale, the final question here is, Yisei Mizu, furthermore, it would seem as follows. Inyan the Kamayim, Yamachasim, Olochayre, Heipecha, Inyan the Yasigu Das Bayram. Seems to be the opposite of the point that the Rambam just said, that we will grasp the knowledge of Hashem. Because Ki Yasigu Das Bayram, what does this word Yasigu mean? When you grasp something, like when you're holding something in your hands, you have it, it's yours, you size it up on your level. Yasiga means hasaga, that you get the Eibishter in your grasp, in your comprehension. Like when you're holding something physically in your hands, so here you contain it and have it and grasp it and get it in your brain. But when it says that world will be covered with the existence of Hashem, like the water that covers the seabed, but it's saying is you'll be completely covered and immersed in this water of the knowledge of Hashem. It's like the water that covers everything in it. And the nimshal as well, what this means is, it's so powerful that it just overwhelms you. It covers you. So the question is, why does the Rambam say this mashal of Kamayim Yamachasim behemshech lebiyere ilui das tagas alakus lasad lavish yasigu das bayram, which means that you will comprehend, not be overwhelmed. It's two opposites. That's the question there. Okay, so here comes a fantastic and phenomenal Hezbollah of the Rebbe, very deep, very comprehensive. Yasigu das Bairam. The Rebbe gives us a taste, even more than a taste, of Yemaisa Mashiach.
And that's the halacha. That's the halacha.
Allah.
Are we going to sleep?
For Chassidus, for all these questions.